sciences, and we are going to focus on looking at design as a career. Now, when one talks about careers, each one of you must have already, have created that vision for yourself कि मैं बड़ा होके प्राइम मिनिस्टर बनेगा, बड़ा होके डॉक्टर बनेगा, engineer बनेगा, and these are aspirations and stories that we build for ourselves. Recently, in the past 2 years, I would say, every time I ask this question, especially to a younger lot, and I say, bada hoke, what do you want to become? Most of them come back to us saying ki YouTube influencer is what we would like to become. So the way in which people are, seeing how, or the definition of career itself is something which is changing and altering and transforming. And the media, of course, is one of the biggest influencers in that way of helping us make that decision. Now, as we're talking about career, I will focus, just look at all the different career choices that one has these days, from the regular doctor, astronaut, singer. Also, you have YouTube influencers, you have those who go to reality shows and talents, you have singers who perform in Hollywood, Bollywood, and that range has become really wide. This time you have fashion designers, you have artists. This one here is an architect. You have people in the theater, drama, performance. You may want to become a lawyer, be a part of the judiciary system, coding, scientist. You may want to become a chef, into construction, built environment activities, sports, cricketer, and so many more things. Like, when I was a young 8th standard student, and the kind of career options that I had, I feel they're very limited to the kind of expanse in which the generation your generation right now is exploring. And it's very much possible that by the time you actually enter the job market, some of these careers or positions may not even be there. Some will be taken over by maybe the computers, or they'll become redundant, and newer professions, may be a part of our field. So it's from this perspective of trying to understand and stay updated with the times and the technology. And because I am an architect, and that is why, I can confidently talk to you about a career in design. And we will also look at it from from design, not just from the perspective of art, which many a times we kind of confuse it, or we use it interchangeably. Matlab kisi ne, you want to talk about art or craft or design, you kind of think all of these 3-4 things mean the same. But I'll also try to make this presentation to you to show you how it is not, and how there are aspects of designing which are so scientific and so systematic in their approach that it will change the way in which you look at design. So can I get at least one round of thumbs up or a yes or something into the chat box from the students if you understand what I'm saying, if my pace is good, if you want me to say something else, or you want me to slow down, or you think I'm too slow, you want me to go faster. So can you just, so are you comfortable with my pace? Yeah, okay. Thanks, Meet. Thanks, Parnashri. So now from here, like I said, that design and art are very different. And the next slide, I will kind of take you through these differences. Now, art could be the painting that you see here on the right side, which is a painting by Raja Ravi Verma. Art could be the drip painting done by Jackson Pollock. And these are very interesting concepts, like instead of actually using a brush and following within the borders, there are different styles that modern artists and illustrators kind of use. And this is an exploration of that. A traditional art form is something like the painting by Raja Ravi Verman. A modernist art form is like the drip painting by Jackson Pollock. You have Lucknow's chikankari, you have those craft weave baskets, and so many more things that we know are a part of our tradition. That is art. And art is also this simple expression of, mere ghar ka drawing that Bittu Sharma would make is also an expression of art. So what is art? Art is just your expression. You want to share happiness, joy, or you just want to share what you are feeling at a particular moment, and you convert it, instead of writing it, you convert it into something visual, and that becomes an art. Design, on the other hand, is very specific. It's an exercise of problem solving. So to give you an example, let us say Dada and Dadi at your house, they've grown very old, and it's becoming very difficult for them to, walk on rugged roads which have a lot of pebbles on them, or to climb up and down or staircases, because they go weak in their knees. And that kind of creates a different kind, it creates a different comfort zone with the environment around them. So earlier super active grandparents would suddenly, because of how their knees are reacting, would prefer to stay indoors, would not like to climb up and down. So then they're changing their behavior. Design would say that every individual or every person has to have the needs to be empowered, or needs to have this opportunity of being the best that they can be. So for a Dada and Dadi to enjoy life to the fullest, what are the things that you could do for them? So the first thing is you empathize, and you try to look at things from their perspective. You say, acha Dada Dadi, would you want to come down and visit the playground or garden or whatever? Would you want to take a walk in the garden? And you think about it from your perspective. Like if you were Dada Dadi, you would say that yes, of course, I don't want to stop or change any of those things in my life. And that is, as a designer, that moment when you say, okay, I will design something for you that will help you. So how do you define that? How do you decide what needs to be done? Is you define the problem. You say, okay, the problem is that they want to step out into the garden to meet their friends. But they cannot do so much of traveling. They want to step out, go to restaurants and have tea parties with their friends. But there is no connectivity from their house to the cafe directly, and bus stop is a little bit too far away, and it becomes difficult for them to make that travel. So similarly, one by one, you start identifying what is it that Dada and Dadi would feel they would want to do, and you identify those areas as problem areas that they're not able to do right now. And then from that, you start ideating. Then you say, ki, acha, okay, so now mobility or moving from one point to the other is clearly the biggest problem. What if I give them a hoverboard? What if I give them a skateboard? What if instead I just create a virtual reality system for them where they're actually sitting in one place, but they feel as if they're moving around and walking? What if I give them a walker, and the walker is designed like this, or maybe I design a wheelchair for them, right? And this is that moment when you start applying ideas to that problem. Now, once you finalize on any of these ideas, you create models of them. By models, you're actually creating something which we call a prototype. If someone wants a walker, then you create a walker like this. You need to know what is the height that the walker this stand needs to have. What should be the depth of this part? Should it have wheels? If it does have wheels, how do you climb up on a stair, right? So then you start, through the model, identifying more problems that need resolution or solution through your design. And then you start testing it. So maybe the final idea that they had was creating a stick which is just doesn't have one peg, but it has 4 different pegs to kind of give more additional support, more utility, how people use it. And that after testing, you know that, okay, this design has now solved a problem for the elderly. Now it can go into the market and we can start making more of these things. This example that I gave you is that of a product design. Okay. Similarly, when it comes to architecture or buildings, there are different problems that every design is trying to solve. And it is not just about how beautiful a building looks or how beautiful this stick that is going to support the elderly looks. It is not about aesthetics. That is art. Art is about expressions. But what is design? Design is all about understanding the problem and trying to solve it and make it better. So design always talks about function कि इसका काम क्या है और ये क्या problem solve करने वाला है. And it is something that you create for somebody else. So there is a target for whom you create these things. But art, on the other hand, it just exists to give you pleasure, or to, there is some art which we call art that creates feelings of sadness or feelings of happiness or anger. So art is clearly that expression in this case. Okay. Now, the truth of the matter is that designing as a topic or as a subject is not something that we started doing just in the last few centuries. It's something that we've been doing since the time that, we evolved as human beings. The first thing that set us aside from animals, one can very confidently say, is the designing of tools. Those tools could be stone tools, bone tools, and different, you kind of used the resources around you to make things better for you. And that is design. You slowly started using the bones as needles to stitch. And that was one problem of clothing or covering yourself that kind of got solved. So one by one, we kind of started using this natural intelligence of ours to build and, to justify answers to certain problems that came in our way. And throughout evolution, we've started, changing things. Remember the very first, there is this whole saying which we use, now, don't reinvent the wheel. Now, wheel is something that was invented some 2000, 3000 years, 5000 years back. Now, maybe before that also, like with the civilization, when civilization started, you actually started moving from one place to another. The wheel was introduced, or it was innovated. Now, that wheel may have been a stone wheel. Moving from that stone wheel to the regular nitrogen-filled tires that you have in our regular cars, to the race cars, to the wheels that we see on aeroplanes, and so many more applications that you see, is called evolution of the same concept, where the problem statement throughout remains the same. It is mobility, but now you're evolving it to make it a better design, to make it more efficient. And that is the beauty of designing, is that you will always strive for something better, that you will always have an iPhone 10 ke baad 11, 12, 13, 14, as long as there is iPhone and as long as there are people, you will have a better version of that design coming in future. So this evolution, like for example, in case of a pen as well, we started with just a quill with a feather, then you got the nib. Then instead of dipping it into the bowl of ink all the time, you kind of said that no, it needs to have a piston system inside itself. So then you have fountain pens. Fountain pens leak, so then you have ball pens. Ball pens can't be used in space, so then you have space pens. So there are different, you change or alter the problem. You kind of alter the scenarios in which you're going to use that product, and you kind of evolve or keep altering your design. We saw that in the last 2 years as well, something as simple as a mask. The first time it was announced that N95 masks need to be used, a lot of people used those masks with nozzles on them. And then it was like, no, you're not supposed to, allow any transfer of particles through it. So the nozzle ones were declared as incorrect. And then you started evolving masks. But this evolution did not happen, like, although much of it also happened in terms of, how like if it's a wedding, then you have a differently decorative mask. Some masks could hang by your ears, some masks would just be headbands behind your hair, depending on how you would want to use it. But in the last 2 years, we've also experimented and innovated on the material of the cloth that needs to be used for this as well. And that is the beauty of, like, we've also innovated, of course, the whole the vaccine got invented, but since I'm talking about it from the design perspective, is why I'm bringing in the mask as an example here. So what do you say, fact of the matter is that, you know, everything can be design, everything can be art as well, but how do you differentiate or you move from it? So something like this, like, do you remember this was my first slide? Okay, and it said let's talk about, but the this was also something that is consciously designed with respect to fonts, with respect to what comes in focus, what to read next, so that order also is comes in. So it, you kind of tend to read this first, this yellow patch, because you know that is the contrast, yellow against black. Then you will read this second portion because it directly comes at the end of this part, and then your eyes will kind of float to the top here, and that this is the last thing that you will read. And you'll see that, okay, there is something more also that's happening here, and this is the last aspect of this entire screen, you know, that you will cover. So what it tells you is that the way in which advertisements are designed, or social media posts, or anything is designed in these days, it follows a certain understanding of how your brain functions, how your brain highlights or focuses certain elements of design, how it, you know, looks at the odd man out or the highlighted feature first, and then it looks at everything else. So design in general is a way in which you're training your brain, or you're using the knowledge and understanding of the brain in itself to kind of, you know, be better at your solutions. So here is a very quick exercise. Since some of you did try the annotate tool earlier, you can just click on the annotate option at the top of your screen for Zoom. Okay, and there are some questions that I'm asking. Now, the reason why it's important for us to kind of explore them is to see how each one of you, you know, maybe considers or thinks spatially. Spatially means when you're looking at a space, how do you see it as a you know, as a problem statement? So for example, the moment I say what is 4 divided by 2, it's very easy for you. You say 2 because that abstract concept of numbers is very clear in your head. But the moment I say look at this patch of area and divide it into 2 equal parts, how would you divide it? Can someone take up a pen and divide this into 2 equal parts? Equal. This A, the first one, divide area A into 2 equal parts. Is it equal? Is this part equal to this part? Who got frustrated? Yes, so the brown line that that student has shown is the right division. And this is the difference between a spatial understanding from a regular cognitive, or you know, like a numeric understanding that we've been taught in maths. Then the next question is divide area B into 3 equal parts. This segment, divide it into 3 equal parts. No, so this part is not there. This white portion is not there. You have to consider only the gray portion. That's right. So this is Point 1, part 1, 1 square. This is the second square, and this is the third square. Okay. Now, what if I tell you that you have to divide part C, this gray area, into 4 parts? Give it a go. And they have to be equal parts. Nice, nice, good attempt. So I'll move to the solution key, because we thought that, you know, the direction or response for this team IWSA, can you please delete the annotations, clear drawings karke, so that they actually see the solution? Yes, thank you. Yeah. So for segment A, the division was diagonal. For segment B, it was, you know, actually dividing it into 3 different squares. But C was different. C was different because you had to create a mini module of this L that you see into a smaller shape, and that is how you can actually make it, you know, divide it into 4 equal parts. And that's the difference between looking at things from a special perspective, space-oriented perspective, to looking at it from just dimensions at an end as a perspective. So let's try to understand design and space a little better. Okay, so imagine this is a room. Hello. Yes. Okay.
Class 9 has joined.
Nice, nice. Class 9, if you, you know, I've kind of progressed a lot into the presentation, but after this is done, if you want me to circle back to the start, I'll be happy to do that. Yeah. Okay. So now we're coming to this aspect of designing rooms. Okay. Now imagine this is a room and you're looking at it from the top. So you're sitting on your fan and you're looking at this room. Okay. Now here in this room, when I am, you know, creating a furniture layout, I want to put furniture inside this living room and I need to add a sofa. Okay. Now, since I do not have ample information available here, I can add the sofa anywhere, correct? So let's say this sofa that comes inside the room, I add it here in the first option in this corner. Okay, on this smaller edge of the room. You have to look at the room from the perspective of you're sitting on the top of the room. Okay, you're sitting on the fan and you're looking below. Okay, and these are the side walls. And this is what you see as the furniture from top. So this is your sofa that you see from the top. Okay, the first option we say is let us place the sofa on this corner. But later I tell you that this is the side of the main door. Okay, so which means that if this is your living room, then your main door is going to open up like this. And immediately you will change the direction of your sofa. You'll say, okay, then it may need to face the living room. So you alter this. Then I'm adding one more information to this. In this design, I'm saying that it's not just that I need to put in my sofa, but what is the sofa facing? I need to put my television set as well. Now in this design, where will you place the television set? Can somebody show me? You can use your annotate tool and show me where you will place the television set. There. So what happens if you're placing your television set there? You're looking at it like this when you're sitting on the sofa. Is that comfortable? Is that convenient? On both the options and suggestions that you've given, I'm looking in either like this or like that. No, my neck is strained. So there is one option that Meet gave. Wow. And then somebody made a sofa. Very good. Very nice. Okay. So I'll just jump to this suggestion that has come in. Okay, so now what happens is, if let's say you have your like Meet suggested, you have your television set here by next to the door. So instead of keeping the door in the center, you kind of have the door in one corner and the rest of the space is kind of taken in there. But you have your window here, and this direct window can cause a glare on your screen. So then you'll, even if you want to watch, you'll not be able to watch. And that is where we move to the suggestion that came in the previous option, that you can actually have your sofa in this corner, you have a window here, you have your television here. And this is through a step-by-step process of, changing and understanding the context around you, that you start through a very systematic scientific process of elimination. And what works, what doesn't work. You kind of create these scenarios that finally give you the best case option. So when it comes to what are the qualities that a designer needs to have, a designer needs to brainstorm idea, because you would notice that the very first thing that comes to your mind may not be the best thing to do. You need to kind of, ask your question, keep adding more context, keep adding more information to verify and justify the solution that you're giving. You also have to be very good at communication, because I need to tell you that, okay, in this corner, although you've given in your door sofa there, maybe there's the door. Maybe what about cost? What about finances? What about budgets? There are so many things, that one needs to take into consideration, that the role or the job of a designer is about aesthetics only. Let's say 30% of the job is about aesthetics, beauty, art, and things that look good. The rest of it that a designer has to do is to put things together that work, okay, and that makes sense. Now, with respect to that career in career in design that one can think of, starting from art director, film director, jewelry designer, animator, which are purely visually driven responses. You also have career choices which lie at the junction of technology, science, and design. And some of those are automobile designer, are UI UX designer, because it kind of takes into consideration psychology, how your brain, UI UX is how websites and web-based applications like Instagram, Facebook, how these portals are designed is called UI UX. So it's user interface and user experience. You have those that get into the hardcore fields of architecture, interior design, urban planning, town planning, and the scale suddenly from a small SX, it kind of increases into an XL, double XL, and those, when you're talking about planning, rural planning, when you're talking about transportation development, like designing that corridor or the golden quadrilateral, or designing the metro stations and the whole connectivity across cities, right? So all of these things require a certain amount of engineering as well as a designing foresight. So with respect to courses, and especially because most of you are close to your 10th and will be deciding on which entrance exams to give, those interested in fashion technology, there is NIFT. Those interested in a pure design entrance on or a pure entrance only in design, there is UCED. There is a special National Institute of Design entrance examination. There is National Aptitude Test for Architecture, which is only for the field of architecture. There is All India entrance examination for design, and there are multiple more entrance tests and examinations that you can take. In fact, at ASEG, we've created like a very short and an interesting free course in Hindi for all students, which which kind of talks about the story of three teenagers who travel through space and time, and they are exploring different facets and elements of architecture. I'll share this link in the chat, as well as share it with Suparna and Swedel later to pass it on to the students for direct consumption and access. Towards the end, I think I would like to take you through certain examples. Like we are used to seeing a house in a certain way, but architects tend to question that whole envelope of what you're seeing. This example here is a house at Alibag, which looks nothing like a house, and it kind of tests the technological aspects of it, the materials that are used. The cantilevers that you see, cantilevers are building elements which do not have direct support under them. So they don't have columns directly under them, and they're actually resting on their own, right? So this means that there is a certain element to it which is beyond just the aesthetics of how things are looking. And that element is the science in building. Like there is an element which says that if every place on the earth has something called a sun path diagram, which means that the sun will rise and set on a particular day at a certain angle, and that angle is what enters the building. So when you're creating your shades, shadows, you need to follow the science of the sun, wind, and the rain. That is part one of science of buildings. You need to follow the science of gravity. This example here is when you have an old heritage building and you kind of build a new structure on top of it, which kind of extends beyond the general base of the original building, then you need to take into consideration how the load is being transferred, how the weight is being transferred, who is carrying that weight, and how is it being transferred. So then there is the science of gravity. And this is something that we call structural engineering. And sometimes structural engineers take it to be a very, these are the columns and these are the beams that you need to design. But there is this subtle beauty to most of the good buildings that we see. Mahendra Raj was one of the most famous structural engineers of India. And whenever you go to whenever you see any monumental modern architecture in Delhi specifically, you can give the credit to Mahendra Raj for those buildings. And at the same time, buildings also talk about the science of comfort. And when I say comfort, I mean air conditioning, the ducts that need to go, the electrical pipes and conduits that one follows, the plumbing. So the amount of water that comes in, flushing, gray water, black water circulation, all of these things. So a building has stopped being something which is just, it's a house that you live in and you feel good about. No, it is actually it's a mechanism, it's a machine that runs effectively. And this is how science is a part of buildings. Buildings these days also take into consideration the science of humans. Means how do people respond to a certain kind of space. This effect here is called the cathedral effect. Cathedral effect means that if you have something which is high ceiling, then it kind of makes you feel very creative. But the moment you have a low ceiling, then like in an operation theater or spaces where you're going to spend a lot of time in with detail oriented work, then a high ceiling will not work. And these are small aspects of human behavior or nature that get incorporated into the way in which we build and design. Now, moving from designing of buildings to the whole concept of art in itself. Now, this is an origami installation designed by a well-known origami artist in India. His name is Ankon Mitra. And origami in this case is not just of the art of paper folding, it's the mathematics of it, about how each of these shapes can be formed, can be twisted, how to hang them, okay, how much of weight which material can carry. To the largest scale, designing or planning, kind of goes to the level of town, city, urban planner. Like I said earlier, you're planning the transportation of a region, you're planning the parking requirement of a place, or land use, like this is an industrial corner, this is a residential corner, this is a commercial corner, or are all of those mixed use corners. So then there are different layers and elements to exploring this field or world of design. Like I said, UI, which is user interface, and UX, which is user experience design. In this case, it's the example of how Google Maps allows you to create your own pegs, your own spots, your own add your own information, and this collective information kind of comes together to become verified or people verified information for all. You do have if you're more interested in the aesthetics of interior designing but not on the science of things, then you have set designs. Like in this case, period of the Mughal period of Jodha and Akbar got kind of was designed and brought to life by Nitin Desai in Jodha Akbar movie. Or even fashion design for that matter. You have Manish Malhotra, Sabya Shachi, and those. For people who have seen the film Okay Janu, which many of you may not have, but there's a famous Indian architect by the name B.V. Doshi, who kind of makes a cameo in that movie. And the reason why I wanted to end today's presentation with him is because just like the Nobel Prize for scientists, architects have the Pritzker Prize. And he is the only Indian who received the Pritzker in architecture, Mr. B.V. Doshi. And so towards the end, I just hope that you have been slightly more informed about career choices in design. And we look forward to seeing the next Pritzker architect in you all.